Hey, good Monday morning to you. Welcome back to week 2 of the 2021 Mizzou football season Power Mizzou streaming extravaganza. That's not an official name. It would be way too long to type or say every single week. But it is Monday. This is the weekend recap brought to you by TrueSon Exteriors and Interiors. I am Gabe DeArmond, PowerMizzou.com publisher. Mitchell Forde is waiting off screen to make a grand entrance here in a minute. But before we do that, want to tell you a little bit about TrueSon Exteriors and Interiors. They are our presenting sponsor for this show every single Monday throughout Missouri's football season. And those guys have been around for a long time here in Columbia. Actually, were named the best of Columbia 2021 when it comes to home remodeling. Sometimes the guy you thought was right for the job just can't get the job done. So you send him to your rival to the south and wish him the best. And boy, I started reading this ad and then realized that's a pretty direct shot at somebody that used to work at Missouri, but that's okay. The new guy comes in, completely smashes your expectations at TrueSon Exteriors and Interiors. They can save you the pain of your remodel looking like a pigsty. They'll get it right for you the first time. Again, voted first place in home remodeling by Inside Columbia Magazine, Best of Columbia this year. They've got the number one team in the business. Call TrueSon Exteriors and Interiors today at 573-442-7292. You can also find them on the internet simply by Googling TrueSon Exteriors, and their page will pop up just like Mitchell Forde just popped up on our screen. Mitch, good morning, man. What's going on?
Oh, not too much. I gotta say, we gotta figure out who's writing these ads for TrueSon Exteriors
They're
and
pretty
Interiors.
clever.
They're well done. That was good. I mean, first of all, the shot that you didn't realize at first who it was about, but then even the subtlety of throwing pigsty in there, I'm impressed. I think he should write for our site.
Yeah, they've got a good marketing person. If you want to, whoever wrote that, and there are other ones, they're all quite targeted toward teams that Missouri might play every year. You'll hear those all throughout the season. But hey, if you want a job, man, I mean, hey, we're always hiring, looking for things that can improve. I appreciate anybody that's joining us live. Once again, understand, hey, it's the middle of the day. Some of you guys have like grown-up jobs that you have to be at an office and do things. Mitch and I don't, so we do these in the middle of the day, especially as starting this week, we're going to get into like afternoon availabilities for interviews. We're going to be writing a lot of times at night during the week, so it's just much simpler for us to do these during the day and then have them available for you guys to rewatch, even if you can't catch it live. But we do encourage any questions, comments from anybody that's here. Feel free. So Colby says, and apparently we're having an issue with Mitch's sound, which I will do my best. I do not hear it. He sounds fine to me, so I'm going to turn him up. Hopefully it will improve things for you guys. But Colby says Luther to the zoo, and I am hoping that is just leftover excitement from last week, and that while we were engaged in witty banter pre-show here, we did not miss any breaking news. I don't think we did. I don't know.
Yeah, I have not seen anything. I feel like I would have been notified by a few different people. I would, or at least hope, or at least one of us would have, if that was actually happening right now.
Yeah, I feel like I would have gotten about 37 text messages if that had happened. So far as we know, Luther Burden simply is committed to East St. Louis High School, which opens the season on Friday night at CBC. So if that changes, we'll let you know. But hey, we've got other stuff to talk about, and that is largely the Missouri football season. So fall camp is closed. That does not mean Missouri is done practicing. They will not simply take 12 days off before playing Central Michigan on September 4th. What it means is that class starts today in Columbia. Mitch, I know that you are now not in Columbia on a daily basis. You may not know this. Columbia sucks again, man. They're all back.
Yeah, that's always the traffic. It increases exponentially all over town every time the students come back. It's tough. But yeah, different little bit of a shift in camp. Not so much just implementing scheme, working on situations, building out the depth chart. It's now more going to be a little more targeted to Central Michigan. I think Mizzou's going to operate this week like it's a game week and just give players a sense of that practice schedule. And obviously can't spend quite as much time sitting around the football facility doing, workouts and watching film and all that after practices, because there will be class, at least in theory.
Right, and I'm sure all the kids go home and never look at football. They only spend those 2 hours a day, and then they're done with football until they come back the following day. But they did have an open practice on Saturday night that I went to, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was like a real practice with 11-on-11 stuff. I expected a very spring gamey type atmosphere where I was watching third and fourth stringers and a lot of special teams drills, but they had like a real practice, and it took me back to like 10 years ago when we could actually write practice reports about what happened.
Yeah, no, pretty good. I was impressed with everything you got to see and report. So yeah, that's a nice little window. Because I mean, other than that, we had watched maybe 15 minutes of one scrimmage all camp, and like, I appreciate them having us out there and doing some in-person interviews. But like, generally speaking, when we're out there, we pretty much just watch them stretch. There's not a lot you can take away from that. So it was nice to have a little bit of at least one opportunity to see some scrimmage work.
Right, and hey, let's get the bad news out of the way first. We haven't gotten confirmation from the team yet, but Kyron Montgomery, freshman defensive end, posted on Instagram that he has a torn ACL and are you familiar with the term dented bone fracture? Because I got to say, man, that seems like it sucks.
Yeah, I had never heard that before. I don't know if that's like the technical medical term, but I would not want one of my bones to be dented. I don't think they're supposed to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like what I would describe something as, right? I go to the doctor, they're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I think my bone is dented. But it sounds painful, but I'm sure it will get fixed. And look, obviously, say it off the top, it sucks for the kid, right? There was a chance he was going to play some this year. He looks like a defensive tackle already. He's a 4-star talented kid, so it sucks for him. But if Missouri can afford it somewhere, it's probably to a freshman on the defensive line. I mean, the truth of the matter is he wasn't in the 2 deep. I'm not positive he was in the 3 deep. He was probably a kid that was going to get a little time, maybe against Central Michigan, against SEMO, see how it goes and whether you want to go ahead and skip the red shirt and play him in more than 4 games. But basically, every coach wants to get through fall camp without losing a guy for the season that they know they're going to rely on. And it is not a shot at Kyron Montgomery, but he's not really a guy they were probably relying on this year.
Right, definitely. Yeah, he had a chance to work his way into a regular role, but Missouri's pretty deep on the defensive line, especially after a lot of those guys came back for an extra year. So yeah, like you said, not a disaster. There have been a few guys go down with season-ending injuries, but that happens almost everywhere. And I mean, like you said, you never want that to happen. You feel bad for all those guys, but somewhat fortunately in Missouri case, I think it's all been freshmen, guys who are probably true freshmen, guys who are probably going to redshirt the season anyway. So like you said in your post this morning, really the one thing out of fall camp that can change expectations for a season is injuries, and there's been nothing severe enough so far that it's, changed my outlook on the season.
Yeah, and you mentioned the super seniors, and I was thinking about that when Montgomery got hurt. I thought, boy, that's really a good deal for Missouri now that all those guys came back. But really, those guys are mostly defensive tackles. I mean, Chris Turner is, I would guess, probably a second stringer right now. He's in the 2 deep, so he's a super senior. He came back. But, I mean, Trajan Jeffcoat, Isaiah McGuire, Johnny Walker, Arden Walker, and I know I'm missing Jatorian Hansford.
Jatorian Hansford, yeah.
Those guys all had another year anyway. So, really, I think the biggest impact was on the interior of the defensive line. The one injury that, look, we don't know where it stands right now. There have been some rumors posted on our message board, and while, again, like I said this morning, I believe those people, they're probably right, but as long as the team isn't commenting, and the team is not going to comment, at least until we talk to Eli Drinkwitz tomorrow, Tyler Beatty did walk off the field pretty early in the practice on Saturday. So by the time they were in 11-on-11, Beatty was not out there. The one scrimmage we got to see, Beatty did not scrimmage. Now, that was, a week and a half ago now? I think it's probably mostly, look, we know what Tyler Beatty can do. Like, Tyler Beatty does not need to be put at risk of injury in a bunch of 11-on-11 reps in camp because we know what he can do. Let's see what Elijah Young can do, what B.J. Harris can do, what Simi Bakari and Dawson Downing can do, because we already know what Beatty's going to be. But at this point, we don't know what the situation with Tyler Beatty is. He could practice tomorrow, and also it could be a situation where you're going, hey, maybe you're without him against Central Michigan.
Yeah. First of all, don't you dare forget to mention Power Mizzou legend Michael Cox.
Right.
I know that's going to start some conversation. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, so the first time we watched a scrimmage, Beatty didn't participate. And I mean, I didn't even report it anywhere just because he looked to be fine.
There.
At that point, we saw him working out. He was there. He was in pads, and it very much looked like a maintenance thing. Like you said, Tyler Beatty's played in a lot of games in his Missouri career. Not a lot of these other running backs have. So it makes sense to, kind of see what you can get. And the staff has talked about doing that some throughout camp, like pulling Michael Maeda and Case Cook for a little bit just because, you know what you got in those guys. The difference in them being ready for the season is not going to be whether or not they do a scrimmage. But, Beatty did get hurt Saturday night. And like you said, we don't know the extent, and this is not something you go with like anonymous sources or speculation on an injury. So we'll just have to wait and see. And it could very well be one of those things where it's hard to get a definite timetable. Like even with Mookie Cooper's injury, Drinkwitz pretty much told us he should probably be ready to go like from a physically cleared by doctor's standpoint in 10 to 14 days. But when you're talking about a guy whose weapon is his speed and he's got a lower leg, maybe ankle, something like that injury, it's going to be really up to how soon can he get back to running like he normally runs. There's a chance Tyler Beatty's has got a similar type issue.
Yeah, I think the in vogue term in sports now is load management. They will do some load management probably with Tyler, especially in these non-competitive games. Elijah Young had a couple receptions on Saturday night. I actually think he might be the best running back on Missouri's roster. Now, Beatty's going to be the starter. Beatty probably still gets more carries, but they're going to use him in different ways. He's a little bit more of a versatile weapon. I think Elijah Young's a kid that could have a pretty good year for Missouri.
Yeah, I think Beatty could have a big year too if he stays healthy. But Young's interesting where he actually was recruited by a lot of teams as a slot receiver. Right. He played running back in high school and played it well. I think he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in Tennessee. But a lot of teams thought his best skill set was his pass catching, and so that's certainly something that you would expect Eli Drinkwitz to use, just like he used it with Tyler Beatty, who was playing a similar role last year.
Yeah, I get Elijah Young confused with J.J. Hester, and I think Elijah Young is from Oklahoma a lot of the time. So we'll work on that throughout the course of the year. So let's talk, positions. I think we're kind of on the same page here. We don't know who's going to start at slot receiver. I assume it's going to be Barrett Bannister in week 1 because even if Mookie is back, he's probably not back. That's the only question for me on the offense. I think at this time last week we had some questions as to the offensive tackles. I think it's going to be Hiron White and Javon Foster. I'd be pretty surprised if it wasn't based on what I saw on Saturday.
Yep, I agree with you. And at receiver, even so, Barrett Bannister might be the nominal starter, but, Mookie Cooper's going to play if he's healthy. Same Dominic Levette's probably not going to be listed in the starting lineup. He's going to play. Same with a few other guys, maybe someone else at least. If you Chance Looper, J.J. Hester, maybe both those guys, they're going to end up playing plenty of snaps and continue to play if they play well. I think the offense is pretty well set. You do have some question marks, obviously, is like who's going to be that third running back and which could be second running back, even more significant if Beatty were to miss a game. So that's something to watch. But for the most part, I agree that I think we have a pretty good idea who's going to be out there with the first team offense on September 4th.
Yeah, we'll switch over to the defense here in just a minute. Defense usually you only have to stop the other team for 4 downs. One time every 130 years or so in college football, it takes 5. Choosing the wrong construction company, that can feel like losing on 5th down. It's a gut punch that nobody should have to deal with, but it happens. Save yourself the heartache. Call the guys over at TrueSon Exteriors and Interiors, a local company with hometown pride that cares more about your experience and satisfaction with the finished product. Call them today at 573-442-7292. Their logo is up there in the left-hand corner of the screen. Will be all show every Monday. We're going to go usually about 30 minutes here on Monday mornings, afternoons, just kind of talking. And I guess next week will be the last preseason episode. I don't think we'll be talking depth chart by then. Do we think Eli Drinkwitz is ever actually going to give us a depth chart? I kind of don't.
They did last year, but I can't remember if it was before the first game or after. I kind of think it was after the first game. I think it was like between weeks 1 and 2. I could be wrong, but they would put them out every week in the game notes last year. So at some point we'll see one.
Yeah, I'm not sure it will be next Monday. Although I don't think there's like this huge advantage to not letting Central Michigan know who the starting right guard is necessarily, but whatever. I mean, I'm not all that concerned with it because we've seen enough of camp that we can make a pretty good guess at it. So defensively, there's two spots to me. Defensive tackle, like there's guys that we know are going to play. I just don't really know which two are going to take the very first snap of the season. I would lean toward Kobe Whiteside and I guess Akil Byers, but I won't be at all surprised if Darius Robinson's one of the two.
Right, and that's kind of like, receiver where they play a healthy rotation at those guys. There's at least 4 guys that are going to play regular snaps. I think those are the clear-cut top 3. I think that the JUCO guys could be in the running to play some snaps as well.
Yeah, I'd say Daniel Robledo is number 4.
Maybe even Mekhi Wingo, not obviously in the running to start, but, he'll get a chance to show what he can do. So, yeah, I agree. It'll be 2 of those 3 who start, and there will be several guys who rotate in there.
And the only position where really throw a dart right now is cornerback. I mean, there were 6 guys that took first-team snaps. Now, they are going to start 3 cornerbacks. That 5th DB in this alignment. Last year, it was a safety. It was Martez Manuel, who I think told you last week he almost felt like more of a linebacker last year. This year, it's what is now called a slot corner. A lot of NFL teams do that. I know Kansas City, Steve Spagnuolo have their 5th DB as a slot corner. So there are the 2 Tulsa transfers. There's Ennis Rakestraw. There's Ish Burdine. There's Chris Sheeran. And there's one other guy that I'm skipping, Chris Abrams-Strain. We've got those 6 guys basically for 3 starting spots. And I don't know, I guess I'd put Ennis Rakestraw as the guy I'm most confident is one of the 3. But then after that, I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm intrigued by corner, and I think that's something, I'm looking forward to talking with the staff and players about when we have our availability this week. It's kind of the one position left on the roster where you don't know what to expect from multiple standpoints. One, obviously, Steve Wilkes has talked a lot about playing more zone, and, he said going into camp he felt like they were picking it up well, but we haven't really had a chance to talk to any of the defensive assistants since camp started, so I'll be curious to see how that's kind of going. I'm sure, I don't expect him to say, like, yeah, we suck at it. We're really struggling, but still. And then, 2, just who's going to play. And it's good to have depth for sure. We saw Mizzou had some injuries at that exact position last year, quite a few, in fact, to the point where they were playing wide receivers and quarterbacks in the defensive backfield at the end of the season. But, you also probably want to, at this point, Eli Dreams even said, by about the end of last week, you wanted to have a decent idea of who was going to be, starting, how the depth chart was going to look. And that's the one position where I'm not sure that they have that. So, yeah, I think I'm with you. Ennis Rakestraw is the guy who I would bet is going to play, is going to start if I had to pick one. I think Caleb Evans probably ends up starting opposite him. That's just more based on the fact of, like, I don't know, you went out and got the kid from Tulsa. He had all these big time offers. People say he's good, so I'm believing them. But even if that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised if Ish Burdine plays quite a bit, because there's always situations where you're going to bring extra defensive backs onto the field. And then the kind of intriguing thing for me is, Allie Green and Chris Sheeran. I think, as at least from what we saw, and granted, it's been a while since at least I saw 11 on 11 live action, but I thought they were both kind of working at that slot corner spot. So I'll be curious to see which of those 2 guys gets the nod there, how much they rotate.
Yeah. So and that's really it. I mean, yeah, we don't know exactly who the kickoff return and the punt return guy are, and I understand there are people who are super interested in that. It's going to be what it's going to be. At punt returner, just find a guy that can catch the ball, and it's an improvement. Kickoff return, honestly, I mean, in the course of a season, you're going to have like 12 of them, maybe 15. I mean, the truth is most kickoffs go into the end zone in college football these days. You're usually better off just fair catching it and starting at your 25. I mean, I would be willing to bet if you fair catch every single kickoff and just start at your 25 on every drive, I bet your average field position is better than if you return every kickoff, unless you have a guy that happens to break one for a touchdown that screws up the average.
Yeah, there's a decent chance that I agree. I think, it's more so it's just like if you have a guy who you really feel like can break one at some point, you got to give him enough chances, just play the odds. But, based off what we've seen from Mizzou in the return game in recent years, it would seem as though they would be very content to just start at the 25.
Yeah, and it wasn't just last year. I mean, they haven't had anybody really make a difference. And Tyler Beatty's been the kickoff guy, and I don't know that it's a knock on him so much as it just is hard to return kicks and the blocking. But I mean, yeah, if you've got Jeremy Maclin back there, if you've got Marcus Murphy back there, absolutely take everyone out and take your chances because the reward is worth the risk. But otherwise, it really isn't. Quick question from Dr. Sanitary, who wants to know if I get recognized on campus. If I get recognized on campus, it's like, how come that creepy old dude hanging out here down on campus, man? I don't have a lot of people come up to me. Yeah.
You were a professor for a brief moment. Some of your former students might still be hanging around on campus. They might recognize you.
I mean, that's been 3 years. If any of them are still there, honestly,
yeah, maybe not.
Maybe it's been 4 years because I talked to Colton the other day, and he said he was about to start his 4th season at Michigan State. So if any of them are actually still students at Mizzou, I mean, bad job, guys. Like, you did not finish. You should have done better than that, because I wasn't teaching freshmen at that point in time. So, yeah, I guess next week we're really going to dig deep and do a hardcore preview of the Central Michigan Chippewas on this show, right? Can you, if I said today, like, name a Central Michigan player, could you do it?
Oh, no chance. No, yeah. I can name their coach. That's it.
Oh, yeah, Jim McElwain. I could tell you that they do have a starting running back who got hurt and is out for the season. I could not tell you his name.
Right, and now he's no longer a player in this game, right. So that's really not very
I never need to know his name. How about this? If I said name a Central Michigan football player ever, could you do it?
Didn't Antonio Brown go there? I think he did.
I think that might be right. What about... What about? I feel
pretty good about that.
I feel like they had a quarterback named Dan Lefevre a few years ago that put up a bunch of numbers.
I think you're right. Yeah, he was definitely a MAC quarterback. He could have been any of the one of the directional Michigans, maybe Toledo. But I think you're right. I think he was Central Michigan.
And the truth is, nobody watching this is going to be able to tell me no, Dan Lefevre was not a Central Michigan quarterback.
Yes,
so we're just saying
they can Google it in 2 seconds. Though I bet we'll find it. We'll have a comment in seconds. Especially if you're wrong.
Right, for sure. The best directional Michigan quarterback that I've ever seen play was Eastern Michigan came here with Charlie Batch a few years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah. More than a few years ago.
Well, quite a few years ago. Yeah,
that would have been a while ago.
A few years ago.
Yeah, he was in the NFL for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, he played for Detroit, so...
Yeah.
But it is still, at least in name, an NFL franchise. So, we'll get into we should have a little bit more Central Michigan injury news, things like that to talk about next week on this show. I don't know. Other than fall camp is over and it's almost football season. I mean, hey, there are actual football games this weekend, right? Is Saturday the first day, or are there games before Saturday?
I don't really even know. I know that there's a lot of high school stuff's kicking off this week, and we'll have some coverage of that from some Mizzou prospects across the state, kind of still ironing down exactly which games everyone will be at. I know I'll be at North Kansas City to see Dominique Orange and 2023 prospect Edric Hill as well. So that'll be something to look forward to. Yes, college football does start this weekend, and I'm probably a bad fan. I don't know what day exactly. I'm sure I know I won't miss it because when I get on Twitter, everyone will tell me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Saturday. Look, it's a hell of a lot better than when it was Central Arkansas UAB last year. Like, I know we get Nebraska Illinois on Saturday. I know that in part because
that one might even be like a Thursday or Friday. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. They play this weekend this week at some point. So we're not going to spend a lot of time breaking down Nebraska, Illinois, but like if Nebraska loses that game, I wouldn't want to be Scott Frost.
Yeah, that's why I'm rooting for Illinois. I like when, chaos and stuff like that happens. I'm a big fan of trying to watch a school fire its coach one game into the season and pay him $20 million to go away.
Especially that school.
Right.
Can we talk about just for a minute how incredible it is that Nebraska football and Texas A&M basketball are currently being investigated for holding extra practices during COVID? Like, dude, they didn't work. You guys were both really bad. Like, I could see it if Clemson had held extra practices, but what did Nebraska do during those extra practices?
It didn't work out well. A&M too. A&M not only did they have apparently the extra practices didn't pay off on the court. They also failed to spread the disease amongst themselves before the season because they ended up missing all the games during the season. They played like 8 games last year. Right. They did a poor job.
Yeah. I mean, Nebraska gets like a C+ for, hey, they were there when everybody said they were supposed to be there. I mean, they even tried to play games on their, like they wanted to join the NFC West last year to play football games. So they deserve some credit for that. They just didn't actually do a good job of it. So, yeah, I don't know. Anything else that like I feel like we'll maybe get some talking points and some stuff the next couple days. I don't know. Desiree Reed-Francois, I think, is in the office for the first time today, so that's happening.
Yeah,
you know.
There's that. No, yeah. I mean, I think we've pretty much broken down camp about as best we can. I don't know. At some point, are we going to give our season predictions? Probably between now and the start of them. We probably don't have to do that today.
Let's go ahead and finish with that because we will talk a little more Central Michigan and we'll maybe predict that game and stuff. So yeah, what's your I don't care if you want to go game by game or just overall record.
Yeah, I'll probably go overall record and just throw it. And also, we probably will say the same thing because there's
not that much variance, right?
Variance, yeah. I think 7-5 is my number. And I could see 8-4. But here's my thought process: is the Georgia and Texas A&M games are almost certain to be losses, and I think Florida is a likely loss. I know a lot of people are saying but they lost a lot, and I get that. I still think they have a lot more. They're going to have a lot more talent on the roster. I think you almost certainly should beat Central Michigan, North Texas, SEMO, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. So we're looking at basically 5-3 with the 4 swing games, and that's how everyone's broken down this roster. I think that I honestly think if they split between Kentucky and Boston College, that might almost change. That might make me think 8-4 is more likely because I think those are the 2 harder of the swing games, especially having them both on the road, both early in the season. I'm not going to say they will definitely beat Tennessee. I think that's the easiest of this group. Arkansas, I never want to make a prediction in advance because one of the teams might have totally lost motivation by then, and they'll play in some sleet on 10:30 in the morning on Black Friday. It's always a terrible event. So
weird things.
Yeah, that's how I get to 7-5. Is I honestly, I would not be stunned if Mizzou starts 2-2, and I know fans will be worried about that. I still think, you can have a solid season from starting at that point. I also think, one of the things I've seen a lot of people say is, well, they went 5-5 last year against an all-SEC schedule, and that's true, but one, if you look at it, you take away the 2 games that were added, you take away 2 wins, so you're at 4-4, and they were not going 4-0 against that non-con last year. BYU would have been a tough game. Louisiana would have been a tough game. I mean, there's a very good chance that you would end up 6-6 on a normal year, and that was even still with having a few close victories and no real close losses. I think 7-5 would be. I don't think see that as a step back. A lot of people are saying, that would be disappointing. I think that would be at maybe even a small step forward, if not, about the same. And that's not a knock on a coach who's still trying to build a program.
Yeah, I've said over under is 7.5, like you said. I picked them 8-4 because I think they split Kentucky and BC. I will base my BC pick on what happens in the Kentucky game. If they beat Kentucky, I'm picking them to lose at Boston College. If they lose to Kentucky, I'm picking them to win at Boston College. I know that sounds counterintuitive. I just think they split those games. And like you said, yeah, could I see them beating Florida or maybe even beating A&M? Sure. But I think the flip side of that is if that happens, I think they stumble somewhere else. I just think we way too often want to assume that teams are playing their best game every week. Teams are rarely playing their best games, right? So the teams that win 10, 11, 12 games do it because their subpar game is still good enough to win. Missouri isn't going to win a lot of games playing a C game this year, right? I mean, they beat SEMO, North Texas, probably Vandy if they came out with a C effort every single week. So Tennessee, look, you're going to have a B- effort at least. Arkansas, you probably need a B effort. And if you don't come out with that, that's where you find yourself, dropping one that you just don't see happening. So I know we always look at best case scenarios and stuff like that. I picked them 8-4. I think 7-5 is more likely than 9-3 is. But I was surprised when I put up that poll yesterday. We had 1,000 people vote, and 84% of them picked 7 or 8 wins. So I thought that was a good, rational, reasonable approach to this season. And I don't think 6 would be a disaster. It would be a little disappointing, but it wouldn't be awful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously depends how you get there. Injuries could play a role, or have something don't go your way in one of the games. Yeah, that's same with obviously some people I think would be more disappointed with 7-5 if depending on how it shakes out, or happy about 7-5 if you get a win against like a Florida or something like that. There's always more to it than just the number of wins.
For sure. So, all right. Well, there's more to that. There's no more to this. I mean, we're done. We got nothing else to talk about other than reminding you one more time to check out TrueSon Exteriors and Interiors. You can reach them by phone, 573-442-7292. You can also reach them on the internet, believe it or not. They do have an internet site. My computer just locked up trying to find it, but I believe it's TrueSonExterior.com. But just Google them, TrueSon Exteriors, and their website will be the top search result you get. So appreciate them taking care of us all season long. So encourage you guys. Your wife's got a bunch of things for you to do on this coming Saturday, because it's the last Saturday. You're not going to park your ass in front of the TV for 6 hours or at a stadium. So, maybe get some help with the stuff you got to do around the house from TrueSon Exteriors. So appreciate you watching. I will be back tomorrow with Sean Williams doing the Tiger Tuesday recruiting show. Mitch is going to join me on Wednesday again for the 573 report. We will have at that point talked to Eli Drinkwitz one more time. So thanks for watching. We will, again, archive this. We'll podcast it. It'll be on the site. There are many ways to watch and listen. Hope you do. Talk to you later.